Let me just start off by apologizing and letting you all know that I am coming to you from family vacation in Minnesota, so this episode might be a little noisier in the background than most of my other ones because I'm not the only one here. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, Clint McLean. This week, the UFC is headed to San Antonio, Texas, for an underrated UFC card featuring Rafael dos Anjos versus Leon Edwards. And this is a sneaky good card. I know. Every single week I tell you guys how fun the card is and how interesting it is and how good it is, and that's just because I'm a junkie. But this week, I really got surprised, actually. I was digging into the fight tape, getting ready to, give my predictions, do my breakdowns, and it just kind of never ended. It was the weirdest thing because every single fight, as I kind of chipped down past the surface, I had an idea of what I thought was going to go on, but there was so much extra tape to view and so many fun matchups that the tape study just kept going and going and going. It was crazy, but I had a good time, and I actually have some really good reads this week. I'm really looking forward to it. So first things first, let's go over last week's card, and we had a damn good week. I am excited about the results. It looked like it was going to be real hairy and spotty there for a minute, but it all turned out okay. Kicking last week's card off, we had Vince Morales. We sniped that beautiful early line of plus 165, and let me start off by telling all of you that that was a pure, blatant, hometown cooking robbery. Our boy Vince Morales, he won that damn fight, and even people who I know that were betting the other side of it, they said that they got money that they should not have. Vince Morales was the right side. Even at a slight favorite line, he got it done, in my opinion, and we got robbed by the judges. So that doesn't feel great. It was a bad way to start out the night, but you know what? I got to give my variant speech one more time here. That's what happens when you let fights go to the judges. There is a lot of that stuff that goes on in MMA betting. So we just try to get the best lines. We hold our nose. That is all we can do. Unfortunately, that one didn't go our way, so we start 0-1 on the night. But then Jonathan Martinez got it done, coming right back the other way. We scored at plus 128 on Martinez, and I got a decent amount of shit for that Martinez pick online after I put the picks out. A lot of people just did not see what I saw in him, and Lou is very, very talented, but he did basically everything that I said that he was going to. He doesn't fight with a sense of urgency, and Martinez is a lot better than people give him credit for. He was able to win that one relatively handily, in my opinion. So rocking 2 dogs to start the night and winning one of them, that's plus money, baby. That's what we do. I love it. Now, I made a mistake here. If we do our usual regret the bet segment here, this would be the only one on the card that I regret. Darren Elkins going out there against Ryan Hall. Hall, I just can't stand. I cannot stand the way that he fights. I know it's smart. I know that it's good. I know that it works. But it is so frustrating to watch. It's so incredibly frustrating to watch. Maybe I shouldn't have made this bet. I should have just laid off it at the pick'em price, but I also did not think that Darren Elkins was quite as shop-worn as he is. I never in my wildest dreams thought that Ryan Hall was going to be able to hurt Darren Elkins on the feet. I thought maybe if he landed one of those big spinning kicks, that could do it, and I had no doubts that that would be something that would actually hurt. But he hurt Elkins over and over with his punches. And that is something that I never saw coming. He never hurt anybody with his punches. And if he is able to hurt Elkins striking like that, boxing like that, Elkins' chin is so much further gone than I ever thought it was. So that was my bad. We dropped that one. I knew it was a bit of a gamble, and whoever implemented their game plan was going to win. And Hall has got that game plan that's really, really just difficult to overcome. So that's probably a spot that we should have stayed away from. I don't want to say I should have bet Hall there because I really didn't believe, I didn't want to make that bet for sure. So maybe we should have just passed on that one, but doesn't matter. We took the L on that one. Juliana Pena gave us a scare in the first round. She looked really, really rusty out there in the first round, and it really looked like she was not the physically stronger of the two ladies, and that was really the thing I was banking on when I made that bet. So I was terrified. I was I was chewing on my napkin watching the fight on that one because I was like, oh God, God, no, this minus 165 favorite, the biggest favorite on the card that we like this week, is just going to shit the bed. But she worked it out. She got it going. Round 2s and round 3, she dominated. She did exactly what I thought she was going to do. Looks like it just took her a round to wake up. So real happy we broke the rule on not betting women coming back from maternity leave there and cashed on that bet. As I talked about before, rules in betting are made to be broken. There are certain circumstances where the rule does not apply and you have to go against something that you basically swear off of because it's just too good of a spot. And that's what we had here. So we cash on that one and get a unit back. Shimon Moraes gets blasted by Andrei Touchy-Feely. This is one that I can't even say that I regret the bet, because going into it, I would make the same bet every single time. I did not see anything from Feely that led me to believe he was capable of doing something like this. One of the little game that I kind of like to play is, if you tell me the outcome of the fight, I try to go back and think, did I ever see that happening? And if you told me that Feely won the fight against Moraes, I never in 1,000 years would have said he knocks him out in the first minute. And you know what? It's funny I say that. Same exact thing with Uriah Faber later on in the card. These two guys, if you had told me that they were both gonna get it done, I would have said that it would have been a hard-fought 3-round gritty decision, a close split decision, something like that. Maybe a late submission. If you told me Feely won by knockout, I would have said maybe round 2 TKO late, something like that. But round 1 flush head kick knockout over Shimon Moraes, damn, dude, I have got to reevaluate how I feel about Andrei Feely, because I said in the last episode that I really thought that he was kind of topping out. I thought that he was stagnating and he wasn't improving anymore, and he just never lived up to, the heights that everyone kind of thought that he could get to. Boy, did he prove me wrong. He showed us in this last fight that he is way more capable than I gave him credit for. So we lost on that one, but we learned a very valuable lesson. This is where it got fun. The 3-fight win streak. Marvin Vettori doing exactly what we said he was going to do for a full 3 rounds, busting up Cesar Ferreira, cashing easily. And then Josh Emmett landing one of those big bombs in round 1, crushing that value at plus 151. And Jermaine Durandamy doing the same damn thing, cashing that juicy plus 158, ending our night in about the best possible way that we could ask for. 5 and 3 for plus 3.12 units. UFC Sacramento was a success, and we're on a nice little 2-fight win streak, or 2-event win streak, I guess I could say. So I'm sitting happy, and I am ready to go for UFC Texas. So before we get into San Antonio, Texas, I have got 2 things I want to go over. The first is we are still affiliated with BetOdds Sportsbook, betodds.ag. For diehard MMA podcast followers and listeners, they have given us a 100% deposit bonus match. If you sign up at betodds.ag and you deposit between $50 and $500, they will match your deposit with bonus play up to that $500 limit. 100% match. So if you want to go in as low as 50, that's fine. If you want to go as high as 500, that's fine too, and they will match it. Now that does have a rollover. You've got to play before you can actually access that, but you know what? Those 100% bonus matches are hard to come by, and it's just using our code. Code is FE6EFB. Frank Edward 6 Edward Frank Bravo. Use that code over at betodds.ag. Get signed up. It's never a bad thing to have an extra sports book. That way, if the line is a little bit different, you can pick the line that you like the best. Make sure you are getting the best spot to put your money. And then you've got a little extra free cash to play around with for UFC San Antonio. So one final thing before we get into UFC San Antonio is I've got some exciting news. I put out a Twitter poll a little earlier yesterday, and what I had asked is, if you were interested, those of you who don't really do the podcast thing, those of you who aren't really into listening to the full-on breakdowns, you just want the picks, you just want to tail the plays or know where I'm at for each fight week, I think what I'm going to start doing is offering a way for you to get the picks. I don't post the picks publicly until the day before the event because, honestly, I prefer that you would listen to the podcast. That way I get the information out there, we can interact with one another, and I continue building, my relationships with you guys, the community, talk to you about my strategy. You get to see all my insights and know where my thoughts are. But if that's not your thing, I totally get it. And about 25% of the people who responded to my poll had said that they would be interested in an option where you could throw me essentially a tip or a donation and then get the picks. Rather than waiting for the day of the event for me to put them out on Twitter, you could get them earlier. So those good juicy spots, where we beat those line moves on the big dogs regularly and stuff like that. That way you can still beat that line move. You can still get the good line before the events take place. I'm open to that. I think that's a great idea, actually, because then it gives me a way to monetize the podcast. It gives me a way to actually make a little cash doing all this hard work for you guys. And then it makes it way more convenient for those of you who just don't have time or don't want to listen to the podcast. You can still tail the bets and get them in there and get all that value where we're beating those line movements instead of waiting for the day of the event. So we are going to start doing that. As always, tips and donations on the podcast, they are always appreciated. They are never expected. You can send those to me at maximusin3d@gmail.com. I'm also on Venmo at diehardmma. I do, like I said, it's always appreciated. It's never expected or anything like that. But if you want to start doing that, I will be more than happy to either DM you on Twitter, or if you want to send me, your email address when you send the tip or the donation for $20, I will send you the picks, everything that I'm on for that particular week. And then that helps you out. It helps me out. You can get down on the good lines, and then I can get a little something for my effort. I think everybody's happy. So once again, if you want the bets, just the bets, you don't want to listen to the podcast, hit me up on Venmo, hit me up on PayPal. If you need any, questions answered about that, hit me up on Twitter. But send me $20. I will send you the picks immediately after the pod comes out on Tuesdays. And in that same line of thought, I want to go ahead and give a couple of shout outs. Big shout out to Alfred Conti and Sumner McCassin. Thank you very much for the tips this week regarding last week's show. We got a couple new subscribers on YouTube that I want to say thank you for joining the Die Hard crew. We've got Ryan's Reps, Noah Martinez, Swifto, DJ Ryant, Nicholas O, OG Johnson, and Bursnell Grant. Grant, you just got on as I'm recording, so welcome to the family, everybody. Let's get this thing going. I am ready. It is time to dig into UFC San Antonio. No more further ado, let's roll. The first fight of the night is in the bantamweight division. We are starting with the little guys, where Domingo Pilarte takes on Felipe Diaz Colares. I can't pronounce that. He is from Brazil. Felipe is 8-1, and Domingo is 8-1 as well. This is an interesting up-and-comer type of fight, and I'm actually really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a scrap fest. Now, I do like Domingo Pilarte here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that right off the bat. However, I hate the line. He opened up as a minus 220 favorite, and he has been steamed all the way up to minus 300, and I don't like it. I mean, Felipe has got some real potential here. And even though I do like Domingo to win, that is just way too wide of a line. Now, Domingo is one of the reasons that we actually bet Vince Morales last week. He came back from that really, really bad first round where he was getting roughed up, but he dug deep, he was tough, and he came back and he managed to choke him out in the second round. He does not quit, and I love that. I love that in a fighter, especially when you're at a pick'em price or you're talking about an underdog. When they don't quit, that is a huge thing that makes me want to bet on them. Now, obviously, you want that in a favorite as well, but it means more to me when they're an underdog. So he's really tall and rangy. He's got some slick Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He is a finisher. I mean, he's got a 50% sub rate. I know he's only got 8 wins, but at the same time, he's getting it done in most of those spots. Now, his opponent, Felipe, he gives up takedowns. He gives up bad positions on his back. He's one of those guys that I think is just confident enough in his ability to defend that he doesn't mind putting himself in in really bad positions. Now, on the feet, he does strike with a lot of power shots, and he really goes for it. However, his striking defense is kind of lacking, so he leaves himself open to get hit. I really think that Domingo is going to find an opportunity to get the tie up. This thing will hit the ground. Felipe probably opens up his back at some point and gets choked out. That is how I see this fight going. The line is nowhere near what I want it to be for something for me to bet on, though. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pass. If you can find a half-decent Domingo Pilarte by submission line, that might be the play. I don't know that that's going to be much better, though, because you are going to limit yourself to him simply winning by submission, and I have a feeling that the bookies are going to know that that's his main path to victory as well. So I doubt you're going to get a very good line on it. At any rate, not a great way to start the night as far as our picks and bets goes, but, what are you going to do? Next up, we've got Mario Bautista. He is facing JIN SOO SON, and no, not that Batista. Mario is 6-1. He's coming out of the MMA lab, and we are hanging around at bantamweight for one more here. JIN SOO SON is straight out of South Korea, and he fights out of Korean Zombie MMA. Yes, the Korean Zombie. This is his protege, and he fights out of the Korean Zombie's own gym. This kid is an absolute monster. He's only 26. In fact, both of these guys are 26 years old. And I just think that JIN SOO is going to be way too much for Mario Bautista to handle here. He is physically powerful. He reminds me a lot of the other Asian and Korean fighters that we're seeing come into the UFC and have success right now. Very physically strong. He fought Peter Yan, and Peter Yan is about to step into the title picture. In fact, he already has stepped into the title picture. Maybe one more fight and he will be challenging for that belt. And he fought very closely with Peter Yan. He wore damage really well. Anytime Yan busted him up with a big shot, he didn't really bleed. He didn't really swell up. I mean, he's one of those guys that just, they wear it well. I don't really know how else to describe it for you, but you're not overly concerned with them getting cut up or having the fight being stopped by TKO, because they can just kind of take it. Now, he has got really good clinch work. He has solid knees when he gets in there, and like I said, with him being physically strong, you can't get away from him. So he's always got a shot to land some good knees. Now, Bautista, he's long and he's tall and he's kind of rangy. You're going to hear me say that a lot on this card. There's lots of tall fighters this week for their divisions, and he uses his striking very well to open up his takedown attempts. Now, he's from the MMA lab, so obviously he knows how to wrestle. Everybody coming out of the lab in Arizona knows how to wrestle, but he has fought a very low level of competition. Now, this is an angle that we haven't used in quite a while, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten the chance to go here because it's one of my favorites. We will fade somebody who's stepping up in competition. Mario Bautista is stepping up here against JIN SOO SON. Now, JIN SOO is relatively new to the UFC. This will only be his second fight in the UFC, but stepping in, starting against Peter Yan and having a showing the way that he did, we know what this kid is all about. Now, Mario Bautista stepped in not quite as deep, but close when he fought Corey Sandhagen. Now, we know that Corey Sandhagen is a monster, and we've cashed a bet or two on him ourselves. So, him losing to Corey Sandhagen, not that big a deal. But he'd lost in about 3 minutes in the first round, and he got finished. So that's like, okay, we're going to take my step up in competition. One guy got smashed. The other one passed. I mean, he didn't win the fight, but he definitely got the stamp of approval as far as the level of competition he was up against. So I think JIN SOO SON is a rightful favorite here in this fight, and I have no problem laying the wood on him. This is another one of those weird ones where basically all the money has come in on his opponent, and the line either hasn't moved or Jin is a slightly bigger favorite. So it's not exactly a reverse line movement situation. It kind of is. It's close. I guess we can call it one. But like 99% of the money has come in on Mario Bautista, and that tiny little bit of money that came in has pushed JIN SOO from minus 190 to minus 200. I think it's going to climb. I think when more people get their eyes opened up to what Jin is capable of, I think more money is going to come in on Jin, and he's going to be a bigger favorite by fight time. Over at Bookmaker, he's all the way up to minus 230. So there you go. That's where it's happening. It's starting already. What we are going to do in this kind of a spot, though, is that he is prime pricing to be used in a parlay, and I know y'all like my parlays. So what we're going to do is we're going to lock up that JIN SOO SON at minus 200, but put a pin in it because we are not done yet. There is another fighter that is later on in the card. We're going to mix him up in a parlay and bring that price down so we don't have to lay the wood. And that way, as always, you guys know I like this strategy. Instead of risking the big money laying the wood with these favorites, we're going to cut that 3.5 or 4 units that we would be laying down to just 1, and we're going to turn that into a nice low underdog or even money price for us to have low risk, low reward versus high risk and still low reward. It looks like we're just going to hang around the bantamweight division for a while in San Antonio, because next up we've got Ray Borg, the Taz Mexican Devil, facing off versus UFC newcomer Gabriel Silva. This one is another fun one. Now, Ray Borg, his last fight, he lost a unanimous decision against Casey Kenny, but before that, he challenged the former GOAT, Demetrius Johnson, and he was able to survive actually pretty well all the way until the 5th round where he got armbarred, and it was a highlight reel armbar. It took DJ basically pulling out all of the stops to get Ray Borg out of there. He was supposed to be the shit. He was supposed to be the next big thing, and we faded him successfully against Casey Kennedy because of all the personal issues that he's going through. Well, now his son is all fine and happy, healthy, and I could not be more happy for him. I can't imagine having something like fighting be my day job and then also have my young child struggling to cling to life at such an early age. I could not be happier the fact that Ray Borg is in the clear when it comes to his family stuff. But now he's coming back and he's taking on yet another UFC newcomer, Gabriel Silva, who's the younger brother of the former UFC fighter Eric Silva. Now, he's going to have a height and reach advantage, and just like his older brother, he has some strong, long punches. He's got good footwork, he moves a lot, and actually he feints and cuts really, really good angles to set up his big shots. The issue that I see here is that he has a hard time with the ground game. Not his last fight, but the one before that, he fought a guy named Camille for FEN 16, and he won that thing by unanimous decision, and I'm honestly not sure how. He gave up a lot of takedowns, a lot of takedowns. And one thing that he does is he actually strikes rather than defending the takedown. So once you get his leg up in the air, he'll just count on his balance and keep wailing away on your head, hoping that you'll let go. Now, we know that that kind of takedown defense is not going to work against Ray Borg. He does train out of Team Nogueira in Brazil, so you would hope that that's something that they're working on. The guys over there at Team Nogueira are not... They're not scrubs, so that should be a hole that they're trying to patch in his game. Now, he does have good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He does have good ground and pound from the top position, but he's got to be on top for that, obviously. Now, a guy like Ray Borg, who's a very powerful chain wrestler, and he's actually really big for the division. Even though he's shorter, he's really thick and he's really stocky, and he missed weight the last time. We don't know if that was because of, family issues, like I said, everything going on outside of the cage, or if he's just getting too big for the division. We aren't sure. Either way, he's strong and he's powerful down here at bantamweight. So he's gonna have the wrestling advantage, and Gabriel Silva has shown that he can give up the takedown. I have a real hard time with this one because I want to fade Ray Borg. I really want to fade Ray Borg. He's got such a bad thing going on right now outside of the cage. That's why we faded him the last time, and he was a huge favorite because of the type of performances that he can do, he can put out. He just hasn't done that in a long time. It's been years, and everyone still remembers the guy that he was leading up to the DJ fight back in 2017. But really, the last time we saw him was 2 years removed from competition and a piss-poor performance against a UFC newcomer. I don't know if the UFC is trying to give him a leg up here, or if they're using him and kind of stepping on his neck to make way for the next generation of fighters, because Silva is 8-0, and he's a new face, but he's a known name with his older brother being a former UFC fighter. He for sure is getting his shot here. I like to line myself up with the UFC. If they're trying to write a narrative, if they're trying to write a story, you want to be on the guy that they are trying to push. I mean, it just makes sense. If they're setting a guy up to win more than likely, or setting a guy up to look good more than likely, that's the guy that you want to be on, and I'm not sure what they're trying to do in this particular matchup. Both of these guys are perfectly marketable. Ray Borg is not beyond saving, And Gabriel Silva is a new young undefeated fighter, so you kind of want to push both of them. I don't really know why this particular match is being made, and the line is something that I'm not a huge fan of either. Ray Borg opened up at minus 265, and if you locked up Silva at plus 225, congratulations, because that's the way to go, in my opinion. Now, obviously, most of the money has followed that exact thought process, and Silva is sitting down at about plus 190 right now. He's as low as plus 185. You can still find plus 195s out there. And as much as I want to bite on that, I don't know that Ray Borg is going to drop the ball again. He's coming off of the first ever 2-fight losing streak of his entire career. And like I said, now that his son is healthy and out of the hospital, I would expect that he's back training more. I don't know if, mentally speaking, I don't know if he's going to be back in the game full force because his kid is out of danger now. That would see us kind of get back to the old Ray Borg, the old vicious Ray Borg that someone like Silva is going to really struggle with defending the takedowns that he was capable of. Or if maybe he's checked out. I mean, if he's full-time dad now, if he's just happy and relieved that his son is okay and back, maybe he lost that killer instinct, you know? Maybe he lost that iron will to fight. So I'm staying clear away from this one. The easy decision is to take a flyer on Silva. But Silva's got that hole that is perfect for Ray Borg. I mean, if you're giving a guy with a struggling takedown defense game a shot in the UFC, you give him a striker, you don't give him Ray Borg. So as much as it pains me to say it, I want to take that shot at plus 195, but I can't. We got to pass on this one. We're going to watch very closely, though, because Ray Borg might be a fade in his next fight. Now, we're also going to watch closely because Ray Borg might be a monster in his next fight, and we might be laying the wood on him. So just sit back, relax, log this one away, get some information, take some notes, and we'll use it the next time both of these guys fight. Next up, we are headed to women's flyweight, where my girl Roxanne Modafferi is taking on Jennifer Maia. Roxanne Modafferi is 23-15-0, facing Jennifer Maia, who's 16-5-1. And you all know how I feel about Roxanne Modafferi. That's our girl. We cashed on that big, juicy plus 300 versus the lesser of the two Shevchenko sisters her last time out. She got it done by split decision, which is stupid. It was a clear decision win. I don't know who scored that thing for Antonina. They need to get their eyes checked. But that was our last run with Modafferi. We really had a good time. We made some cash, and everybody is shocked right now because I tweeted out an early pick. We are on Jennifer Maia at minus 130. One more reason to give me a follow over on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod is anytime I decide to make a play, if I add to it after the podcast has already been recorded for the week, or if I get a line that I like and I tweet that out early on to make sure we're locking up the best number, that's where you're going to get that information, is over there on Twitter. Now, I am wrong in this particular situation. I've locked up a bet at minus 130 on Jennifer Maia, and money is pouring in on Roxanne Modafferi, and that honestly surprises me a little bit. I thought people were going to wisen up and see the things that I have been seeing, and they just aren't. So the line is getting better and better for Jennifer Maia, and I'm very honestly considering adding a second unit onto it at minus 113, because it is almost at a pick'em price, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets there. If this thing does get down to a pick'em price, or if Jennifer Maia should become an underdog, I will guaranteed be adding another unit on her in this fight. So let me tell you what exactly is going on here. The reason that this line opened up here is that Roxanne Modafferi is getting a lot of credit for her win over Antonina Shevchenko, which she very much should. Those of you listening to this, don't think I'm talking bad about my girl, because I'm all about Roxanne Modafferi. But she is limited, and she does struggle with a very specific skill set. And what we are getting here is amazing line value against her because of the performance that she had against Antonina Shevchenko. Antonina Shevchenko is not a mixed martial arts fighter. She is a striker. She is a kickboxer. And she is not ready to handle the ground aspect of this game. Now, even though Roxanne Modafferi has an underrated and underappreciated skill set, she is 36 years old. Now, we talk about men hitting that point of no return at about 40. When you're like, okay, 40 years old, that's when father time starts catching you. You could be the best in the world, but you become untrustworthy at 40. With women, I think that age is a little bit lower. I think 36, 37, 38, that's where you kind of start looking at that. That's where the damage really starts adding up. That's where, the wear and tear on your body, they're not particularly growing or evolving because, especially with someone like Roxanne, she lacks athleticism. That's something that she has never had her entire career. Now, yes, she has cranked up the strength and conditioning program. She is getting stronger physically. But one of the things is she's not going to have explosive movements suddenly. She's also not going to be fast suddenly. She will still be herky-jerky and slow, but she might hit just a little bit harder, or she might be able to, hold someone down a little bit more. She might be able to pin someone up against the cage a little bit more. Pure slow strength is the only thing that she's going to improve here. Yes, her footwork can improve, but again, not the fast twitch muscle, not the fast twitch reflexes. That's something that she has just never had. It's a limitation of her body. And against someone like Shevchenko, that didn't matter because she had the exact skill set, the paper to Shevchenko's rock, that it took for her to beat her. Shevchenko could not defend the trip takedown. It was there all day, and Modafferi hit it whenever she wanted to. And once they were on the ground, that is Roxanne's world. She's a great grappler, and she is very good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Shevchenko is only a striker. She's a pure striker. She was able to defend herself, but that's all she had. She could keep herself from being tapped out, but she could not get back to her feet, and she could in no way threaten Roxanne Modafferi. Now, Roxanne Modafferi, though, struggles with women who have a good ground game and women who are physically stronger than her. Shevchenko was tall and skinny and long and fast, but she was not able to physically out-muscle Roxanne Modafferi, and that's what made that whole game plan possible. Who Modafferi has struggled with and lost to is Sijara Eubanks, Nico Montano, and, go back to 2016, Jennifer Maia. That's right, this is a rematch, ladies and gentlemen. Roxanne Modafferi is 36 years old, and she has always struggled with bigger, stronger women than her. Jennifer Maia is younger than Roxanne Modafferi at 30 years old and already has a win over her. She fought very, very closely and competitively with Liz Carmouche, who is the gorilla. She is a physical specimen for the women's division at this weight class, and Maia was able to hold her own in there. Maia also had no problem with people like Alexis Davis, and in her first fight with Roxanne Modafferi, she is a black belt on the ground. She has excellent clinch work. She's big and has good hands and a long, rangy jab. She actually throws really good combos, and her overhand right is a very powerful punch that she was able to really rock some ladies with. Now, one thing that is just really the key point here for me is that Maia was able to clinch and defend takedowns against Liz Carmouche. She was also able to pin Liz Carmouche up against the cage and control her physically. Now that right there is something that's super impressive to me because, like I said, Carmouche, even though she's getting older, she is a physical specimen at this weight class. Women are not able to physically outmatch her, and there were times in that fight where Jennifer Maia did. So even though she dropped that decision, she still showed that she's going to be physically more powerful than Roxanne Modafferi. So Maia is going to be the crisper, better striker. She's going to land the harder shots. She's going to be able to basically outclass Roxanne Modafferi on the feet. And when the two of them land, Maia will walk through whatever Roxanne Modafferi hits her with, and then she will land punishing shots of her own. When this thing turns into a clinch battle and Roxanne goes for that takedown trip, it's not going to work on Maia. Maia will be able to outstrength Roxanne and just walk her over to the cage and pin her up against it. Hell, she might be able to put Roxanne on her back. And Roxanne is so confident in her ground game, she will accept the bottom position. She does attack with submissions from her back. She does never quit. She goes for arm bars. She sticks to a game plan, which are things that I very much like about her. However, in this case, it's not going to pan out, because if she's on her back throwing up arm bars and shit like that, Maia's a black belt. She's going to see that stuff coming a mile away, and she's going to have the explosiveness and the strength to make up for any type of technique difference, although I don't know if there's going to be a technique gap. So she will both be able to defend it using her athleticism and using her skill set, which makes it very, very difficult for me to see any way that Roxanne Modafferi manages to get this fight done. I don't think that she can out-physical or out-veteran Maia over 15 minutes. She failed to do it the first time, and whenever there is a rematch, I always favor the younger fighter. The younger fighter is the one who you are going to see more evolvement from. There's very, very few cases where someone who is 37, 38, something like that, and they're still continuing to add wrinkles to their game that's outside of what you've already seen them do. So yeah, Roxanne might be better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but she's always been good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You know that going in. She's not going to come out here and suddenly throw a flying knee that we've never seen her do. That just won't happen, because that's not in her game. That's not part of her game. She will not add that. Now, Maia, on the other hand, she may have gotten a new Muay Thai coach. She's 30 years old. She's explosive. She can jump. She could come out here and throw a flying knee. You don't know the types of things that she's going to add to her game and mix into the concoction here that we're trying to build. So basically, long story short, everyone's seeing Roxanne Modafferi in her last big win and going, this girl has got it, and we have all underestimated her, and that is true. But we have gone too far the other way. We're giving her too much credit in this fight, and she is getting way too much love in a fight where she is just going to struggle with absolutely everything that Jennifer Maia does. I think that she will be tough enough to hang in there, but I do think this is going to be a very one-sided decision where Maia basically controls this fight from bell to bell. We've got Jennifer Maia at -130, and as much as I absolutely hate fading my girl Roxy, it has got to be done. I've got to bet smart. I cannot bet with my heart. We are going to be on Jennifer Maia, fading one of my favorite fighters in the whole world, and to show you just how confident I am in this pick, I'm adding a second unit. We are going to take Jennifer Maia at -130, and we are going to add Jennifer Maia at -113. That's right. We are laying 2.43 units to win 2 units on Jennifer Maia. Laying the wood, 2 units, diehards. Finally, we've got a big boy fight. We're headed up to light heavyweight, where Smiling Sam Alvey is taking on KLIDSON ABREU. KLIDSON is 14-3, and he hails out of Brazil. Smiling Sam Alvey is fighting out of Team Quest here in the good old S of A. He is 6'2", 205 pounds, and he is only 33 years old, a fact that I actually had a hard time comprehending. He's one of these guys who I feel like has been around forever, and I kind of thought he was 38. I really thought he was one of these fighters that's getting closer to 40 that I would need to pull my old, well, you don't bet on somebody after 40 deal. But he's only 33, which just absolutely floored me. Abreu is willing to pull guard to get these fights to the mat, which is not something that you see a lot in MMA. More often than not, even if you're confident in your ground game, you don't want to be pulling guard. You put yourself at the mercy of your opponents, especially if they're at all ground and pounders, or if they have any type of wrestling. Even if you're confident in your BJJ, you are setting yourself up to take damage to open up that threat of a submission. And it's just not generally something that you see unless you're somebody like Damian Maia, who can always get to the back and get that submission based off of that. Now, this guy Abreu does have a decent number of rear naked chokes on his record, so maybe that's kind of what he's going for. Maybe he's going for a Damian Maia type of setup, but he does have some really good chain wrestling. He is physically strong, but he's a bit slow in plodding. He is a bit sloppy. He does throw head kicks, and he's got some explosive offensive submissions. His BJJ is definitely where the strength in his game lies. He doesn't ever really quit, which is something that I do like to see, but he is relatively hittable. He did bring the fight to Ankalaev, and he did come in that fight on short notice. So debuting against a guy like Magomed Ankalaev on short notice, you can't really expect a whole lot out of that. Ankalaev is 11-1, and his only one is one of those crazy, now I'm going to use the term fluke, submission losses to Paul Craig. So he's a monster. Starting off with your UFC debut being Ankalaev is really no joke. And you've got to expect that fight could have gone a little bit differently because Abreu, if he had a full camp behind him, he probably has a better game plan and he probably comes out looking a whole lot cleaner. Now, Smiling Sam Alvey is one of those strange cases that you get in MMA where it just seems like what he does should never work, but it does. He's very slow and plodding, and he hits like a freaking truck, man. He was at 185 for a long time in his career, and most recently made the jump up to 205, and I'm not quite sure what the reason for this was. Most of the time, you'll see people dying to make these kinds of weight cuts, and it's really just, they get more juice going, they've got a better gas tank, they've got more pop on their punches, they get new life when they move up a weight class. I don't know that that's what was going on with Smiling Sam. It's not like he had a just, shredded physique. He's got kind of almost a dad bod, a muscly dad bod type of physique. So it's not like he was shredded at 185 and he needed that extra water weight. I mean, maybe he's kind of like a Daniel Cormier where it doesn't matter how good of shape you're in, you're just never going to look like that. So maybe he was having a hard time with the weight cut and we just don't know about it. I am really not sure. Maybe he thought 205 was weak. Because that can happen from time to time. I mean, that's how Randy Couture back in the day won the heavyweight belt. He was having a hard time at 205, and he looked at everybody at heavyweight and said, heavyweight division's weak sauce, moved himself up there and basically crushed everybody on the way to the belt. So maybe he just saw a spot and went for it. I am not sure. Now, looking at his record, it's not that great. I mean, his last 3 fights, he won a split decision over Gian Villante, who we have discussed openly as being maybe the bottom tier UFC light heavyweight. And winning a split decision over him is kind of brutal. You want to be stomping somebody like Gian Villante. He gets KO'd by Antonio Rogério Nogueira, which we cashed in on because we bet on the old man to still have that fire in his punches, and we were right. We also actually faded him appropriately on Jim the Brute Crute, which is his most recent fight back in February, where he got KO'd in the very first round. Now, I did go back, obviously, and I rewatched those fights studying for this particular matchup. And something that kind of concerned me a little bit was that the fights were stopped just a little bit early. And this is not with, beer goggles on or 20/20 hindsight here. They were stopped early. The Antonio Nogueira fight, I mean, he was a little heated on that one. It was the same ref. It was Mark Goddard both times. Sam Alvey is very clearly documented having a problem with Mark Goddard because of this situation. He feels like he was not fully out against Little Nog. And I kind of disagree on that one. I do think that Nog would have just kept pouring it on him, and Mark Goddard saved him from further punishment. I completely think that first fight was a legitimate stoppage, maybe just a hair or so early, but I do think that it was justified. Now, the second fight, Jim Crute, I'm happy we cashed on that one. I'm definitely excited that we made money on that one, but it was a little early. It was a little early. I'm not going to lie. Sam Alvey was hurt, and Jim thought he had a walk-off KO. So he kind of went away from him for a little bit, and Jim sat up immediately, and it was clear that he wasn't out. So Jim rushes back in and kind of dives on him to start pounding again, and Sam Alvey goes into like kind of a face-down, curled-up type position to protect his head. So it doesn't look good. And you do have to be showing signs of offense or showing signs of trying to improve your position, things like that for the ref. But what he did was he pinned his arm up against his own right shoulder and bicep, and Jim Crute wasn't landing any clear shots. So it really looks like Jim Crute is going to town on Sam Alvey, but he wasn't connecting. He wasn't connecting at all. And this is another one of those weird thumbs up situations where Sam Alvey's left arm was fully extended, and he had the thumbs up out for the referee. So he was trying to show Mark Goddard, I'm good. He was rocked in the beginning, but he was defending himself, and he was not taking damage at all after that point, and he was trying to give Mark Goddard the signal, I'm okay, I've got this. As soon as Mark Goddard stepped in and waved the fight off, Sam Alvey steps up and starts screaming profanities at him, rips his mouthpiece out, and gets in his face. So, I mean, it wasn't one of those ones where He shoots a single leg on the referee because he's just so far gone. He thinks he's still in the fight, but he's really not. No, he stood up and knew exactly where he was. He knew exactly where the referee was, and he got in his face about it. He was fully conscious. He was completely clear in that situation. So I really do agree that that second fight was an early stoppage. He even did the thumbs up, and that's really the key point here, is that he gave the thumbs up, showing Mark that he was good and he was okay to ride out that spot. So we got to kind of put a little bit of a sprinkle here on those last two losses. Now, he did get clipped, so we know he's been rocked there, but let's take a look at the guys that are rocking him, right? I mean, they are powerful, physically strong dudes with really crisp, tight boxing. Those are the guys who are hurting Sam Alvey. Now, you look back at some of the people that he's beaten. He beat Nate Marquardt, which back in 2017, that was saying a little something more than it is today. He beat Rashad Evans. Yes, that was Rashad Evans winding down on his career. He beat Gian Villante. So even though we think that Gian Villante is a little low, he's got a serviceable skill set. And then he fought Parchino. Now, Marcin Parchino, he's 13-4. And his most recent loss was to Magomed Ankalaev, who we have determined is a monster. So his only two losses were to Sam Alvey and Ankalaev. If you say Sam Alvey is somewhere down the ladder, we know Magomed Ankalaev is somewhere up the ladder. Which, unfortunate for this poor kid, because you go from getting KO'd by Smiling Sam Alvey to getting worked by somebody who's even better than Sam Alvey. Somehow you moved yourself up the rankings to be a showcase fight. Not exactly sure how that works out. But we can't really say too much about him, because the only people that he's beaten to have been decent, UFC level competition. And he was 13-2 coming into the UFC with lots of KO finishes on his record. So we know he likes to bomb as well. So basically, if you're able to stand and keep it on the feet and trade and have crisper boxing than Sam Alvey, you stand a shot to clip that chin, hurt him, rock him, and knock him out. This ain't it. Abreu doesn't have that game. Abreu wants to come in here and get it to the ground. Abreu wants to take you down, and he wants to wrestle you, and he wants to maybe clip you just barely on the feet, throwing some of these wild shots, and then wrestle you and look for that submission. And I dare ask, how many times has Sam Alvey been submitted? Once. Sam Alvey has lost by submission one time in his entire storied career, and that was to Gerald Meerschaert back in 2010. Do we think that this Abreu kid is slick enough to come in here and submit Smiling Sam Alvey? No. The answer is no. I don't believe he is. Sam Alvey trains out of Team Quest, and his idol is Dan Hendo Henderson. He knows how to wrestle very well. He's got good, solid defensive grappling, and he is the old school type of fighter where he uses that wrestling in reverse to stay on the feet and make this thing a striking match, a boxing match. Now, do we think that Abreu is going to be able to knock out Sam Alvey? I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. He does have 4 KOs on his record. However, those were very early in his career when he was fighting low-level regional talent, just kind of barely getting going. He hasn't knocked anybody out since all the way back in 2016. So Sam Alvey only gets knocked out by people who are better boxers than him, and they need to be power punchers. That's definitely not Abreu. Could he clip him with a head kick and rock him or something like that and get it to the ground for the submission? Sure. Yeah, maybe he could do that, for sure. Is he going to pull guard on Sam Alvey? No. Sam doesn't play that game. He's going to get right back on his feet and make the guy punch again. So all this comes down to the fact that I think people are overlooking Sam in this spot. I think that people are looking at the record and seeing 2 brutal KO losses. And if you didn't go back and watch those 2 KO losses very closely, you would think that they are a lot worse than they actually are. Now, prior to those 2 losses, we're going back a little ways here, but Ramzan Emeriv, he lost via decision, and then he lost via decision to Talis Ladies as well. So he wasn't getting brutally knocked out or clipped or anything like that. You've got to go all the way back to 2015 when he got absolutely blasted by Derek Brunson before we see another bad KO loss. So I really think Sam Alvey's being undersold here. Now, most of the money has come in on Abreu, which I love seeing because we are going to go ahead and fade the public. We can get a nice juicy plus 144 right now on Smiling Sam Alvey, and he always fights very close decisions. That's something I want to circle all the way back around to on the beginning of this thing. When he fought Gian Villante, That's what Sam does. He fights up to the level of his competition, and he almost kind of fights down to the level of his competition. He wants that big highlight reel knockout. That's what he's looking for. So he counter punches, he's low volume, but he waits for his openings, and then he makes you pay. So even if he is fighting a slightly lower level of competition and winning by split, it's mostly that way because he's kind of taking that little notch down. You go back to his run over at 185, Nate Marquardt, Alex Nicholson, Kevin Casey, Eric Spicely. Unanimous decision, TKO, submission. That's how he handles the people that are a little bit lower level in that kind of a spot. And I think that's kind of what we're going to get here with ABREU. If it goes to the judges' scorecards, I expect it to be close. On the feet, Sam Alvey is going to be doing all of the damage. If it goes to the ground, we might be in trouble. And yeah, ABREU might be able to go ahead and grind out a decision here. Because like I said, he came in on short notice against Ankalaev for his UFC debut. And before that, he was basically finishing everybody. But it's not a step up in competition from Ankalaev, but it's a step up in competition from the people he was fighting to prior to Ankalaev, where he was finishing basically everybody. So he's still getting accustomed to the UFC level of competition, and we don't know quite yet if he's there. Let's rock smile on Sam Alvey. I like this guy. I like cheering for this guy. He's a good personality, and I don't think he's going to drop 3 in a row. I don't think this is the spot for him to drop 3 in a row. I think you'd need to give him somebody tougher than this for him to drop 3 in a row. So we're going to lock up that plus 144, and we're going to roll with smiling Sam Alvey. Now, just something to take a look at. I'm going to play Sam Alvey straight. I do think that he is the right price to do so, but you can get Alvey wins by 3-round decision at plus 375, and I'm very interested in that. I just think the way that Sam Alvey fights, if he doesn't get that big, solid KO, it's probably going to be a close, grindy decision type of fight, and it wouldn't surprise me if it went the full distance. Now, you can get plus 290 on Alvey inside the distance, which he always does have that big knockout power, so it's possible, but getting damn near 4-1 on a decision, I don't mind that prop at all. If you were going to put like a regular-sized bet on Alvey to win straight, and then do like a quarter unit on a prop just for some fun extra juice, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at that by decision prop. Next up, we've got another ladies fight. We are headed back to the bantamweight division. I know it's not the men's bantamweight division, but we're back in the damn bantamweight division. Not that I have a problem with that. I actually love the bantamweight division. We have Raquel Rocky Pennington. She is facing off against Irene Aldana, and this is a really fun fight. Raquel Pennington is one of those staples of women's MMA. She has one of those terrible, awful records because of the massive names that she's fought. She's 9-7-0, and while it doesn't look overly impressive, she actually just went with Amanda Nunes for a full 25 freaking minutes. Now, Irene Aldana is 10-4. She's 31 herself, so she's actually the older of the two fighters, which is another one of those ones that kind of surprised me. I thought Irene was a little bit younger. She is slightly newer to the sport than Raquel Pennington is, but not by a whole lot. So that one caught me a little bit off guard. Now, very recently in May, she was gifted her 10th win by the UFC when she got matched up with Bethe Correia. Now, Bethe Correia is my number one worst women's MMA fighter in the UFC, bar none. She was pumped up big time to go fight Ronda freaking Rousey when the UFC wanted to crack into Brazil. They wanted another Brazilian star, especially a big women's Brazilian star, and they hand-fed her terrible opponents to get her a couple UFC wins so that she could challenge Ronda Rousey, and it took Ronda all of 34 seconds to completely demolish her. Since then, she dropped a loss to Raquel Pennington. She won a split decision closely against Jessica Ai. She had a draw with Marion Renault. She got head kicked into oblivion with Holly Holm. Basically retired without actually saying the words retired, and then came out of retirement for UFC 237 when Namunas fought Andrade in Brazil. It was kind of like a, hey, we're in your hometown, girl, you want an extra paycheck type situation. She stepped in there, and she got messed up. Aldana got her out of there in the third round via armbar, and it just was not pretty. She shouldn't be fighting anymore. We are not here to talk about Bethe Correia, but that is Irene Aldana's last win, and I just wanted to make sure that you all knew how very unimpressive it was. So even though she is 3-2 in her last 5. I don't even want to count that last one. I'm going to say she's 500. I'm going to say she's 2-2 because Bet shouldn't even be fighting. Now, she does have good leg kicks, she does have good movement, and she is a solid boxer. She's got explosive hip throws, and that was something she showed in a couple of her most recent fights, where sometimes people talk about how women's MMA is a slightly lower level than men's MMA still, and things like hip throws, head and arm throws, stuff like that still works, because the women haven't developed the right tool sets to counter those things. The good ones have. However, the mid-tier to low-tier fighters still have not caught up, and those things still work. That's something that Irene goes to regularly. Well, she mostly has fought strikers, and I think that's a very, very important thing for us to note here. If you look back through her record, it's like 90% strikers. She hasn't fought very many grapplers at all. And the last time she fought a strong grappler was back in 2015 when she fought Tanya Evinger and she got TKO'd. So something to keep in mind. Now, Raquel Pennington is one of those fighters who straight never stops. She always keeps coming, and that's what kept her going in the Amanda Nunes fight. She made it all the way to the 5th round before finally getting TKO'd, and she put the pressure on basically the entire fight. She was getting boxed up. Not much to say there. Nunes is literally the women's GOAT, and her corner should have given her a way out. She had gotten beaten up for 4 rounds, and she wanted out of there. And her corner made her go out there for round 5 and basically didn't allow her to throw the towel in. It was a real nasty situation. They could have saved her. They could have saved her some pain, some embarrassment. She really didn't need to go out there for the 5th round. But the fact that she dug deep and held in there and walked through all of those punches just is testament to her toughness. Before that, she fought Miesha Tate, Elizabeth Phillips, Bethe Correia herself, and Jessica Andrade and Holly Holm, Ashley Evans Smith, Jessica Andrade again, Roxanne Modafferi, Leslie Smith, Kat Zingano. She has fought everybody that there is to fight in women's MMA. And the only losses have come from really great women's fighters. She lost most recently via decision to Germaine de Randamie. That was the measuring stick that we used to cash our big juicy plus 158 on Germaine de Randamie because she was able to defend against such a tough fighter in Raquel Pennington. She most recently after that lost to Amanda Nunes, which we did already talk about, but it needed to be said again. She lost in 2015 to Holly Holm. It was a split decision. It was a really close fight, and that was back when Holly Holm still had some gas in the tank. She lost a split decision to Jessica Andrade back in 2014, and we all know about Jessica Andrade. She's the current champion. Even though she hadn't polished off her skill set back then, she was still a very powerful fighter and a very scary fighter in her own right. Before that, when she was in Invicta, she lost to Leslie Smith and Kat freaking Zingano. And now 2012 Kat Zingano was prime Kat Zingano. That's when she was the monster that I still hold very near and dear to my heart. I was a huge Kat Zingano fan, and I'm very sad that she was kind of past her prime and dealt with all those personal issues when she finally got to the UFC, or just, the last handful of years, because I wanted to see her really get in there and smash some heads, and it just kind of hasn't happened. But that's a story for a different day. Raquel Pennington is exactly the kind of fighter that you want in this position. Her opponent hasn't really fought very many grapplers, and Raquel Pennington has gone in there with some of the biggest names in women's MMA, and she has fought very, very competitively and very closely with most of them, and even the ones that she's lost to, she has had her moments, her flashes of brilliance. And before I got into this fight, I did a little bit of detective work. I kind of stalked Raquel Pennington on Facebook for a little bit, because one thing I was concerned with was you get blasted in the 5th round by Amanda Nunes after basically telling your corner that you want to quit. And they don't let you. They don't let you quit. So you get forced out there into the 5th round and you get wrecked by the women's GOAT, probably the hardest female puncher on the planet. That isn't a good look, and that can't be good for your health or your confidence or really anything. So she comes back out against Germaine de Randamie. Now, I know we used that fight as a measuring stick, and we did pick on Germaine de Randamie, and we were correct about Germaine de Randamie, but maybe she wasn't quite up to the level that she used to be, right? Like, there's always that chance, and maybe we just got a little lucky on our pick last week. But after stalking her on Facebook a little bit, not on Facebook, what the hell am I talking about? I went to her Twitter, I went to Instagram, and I kind of followed up on some of her training stuff, took a look at what's going on as far as, what she's doing to get in preparation for this fight, and the girl is locked and loaded. Let me tell you, Raquel Pennington is putting in work. She's doing a whole lot of strength and conditioning stuff. She's doing a whole lot of really powerful squats. Shit, she can lift more than me. I'm 220 pounds. I'm 6 foot tall. She would outlift me without breaking a sweat. Watching her do deadlifts and watching her do squats, and then she was doing this really cool thing where she had resistance bands and weight going, where she was really like kind of engaging in her hips. I gotta think it's for takedown, clinch, and cage work, because she was stepping forward and like exploding forward with her hips to really get pressure into her opponent while still standing. Very, very, very useful strength training for this kind of a fight. What I think is Raquel Pennington is going back to basics. She's going to use her striking to pressure her opponent. She's going to pin her opponent up against the cage where that length range advantage is going to completely disappear. And then she's going to work her wrestling. She's going to drag her into a dirty, gritty fight up against the fence. And if she can't get her down, she's going to rough her up there. And that's where she really shines. And like I said, she has only lost to the cream of the crop. Do we think that Irene Aldana belongs in the company of Germaine de Randamie, Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, Jessica Andrade, and Kat Zingano? Is the next name to be added to that list Irene Aldana? I don't think it is. She lost to Leslie Smith, Caitlin Chikagian. Like I said, she got TKO'd badly by Tanya Evinger. She hasn't really fought anybody like Raquel Pennington. And I think that a lot of people are sleeping on Raquel Pennington here. The line hasn't moved. There's been good two-way action here for the bookies, so I'm sure they're more than happy with this particular fight, but we're getting plus 135 on Rocky. And I think they're short-selling Rocky. This is a fight that, worst case scenario, in my opinion, should be a pick'em. If Irene is able to defend the takedown, step back, and box kind of like Germaine de Randamie did, then she wins. If she cannot manage to break the takedown and Raquel can implement her game plan and keep her up against the fence or put her on her back, Raquel wins easily. Now, I think that Pennington might potentially even be a slight favorite in this spot, because if you make them both stand, I think that Raquel is not defenseless. I think she's got decent enough and improved enough striking that she can at least be semi-competitive on the feet. Obviously, Irene Aldana is the favorite here, but she would at least survive. Now, if you put them on the ground, I think Pennington is miles ahead of Irene Aldana. And I really think she's got a massive advantage when it goes to the ground. So if I'm saying that this fight is a pick'em and it really just depends on game plan, one of them gets blown out in the other one's world, and the other one still potentially has a fight on her hands. So all that being said, I think Pennington should be a minus 120, minus 130. Instead, she is plus 135, which means I've got to take that. The line is off. This is a sheer line value play. I'm a fan of Pennington. I'm a fan of her skill set. I'm a fan of how tough and gritty and durable she is. And especially, I've said it a couple times already this podcast, her desire and her willingness to never quit. I'm a huge fan of that. And especially as an underdog, she's going to fight for us for a full 15 minutes. She's going to go out there from the start bell to the last bell, and she will stick her head in her opponent's chest and try and drive her through that steel cage. We're going to bet on Pennington. We're going to bet on her to get back on track, and we're going to believe in the message that she is selling herself through her social media posts about positivity, about motivation, about goals for the future. This girl's not done yet. She's still hungry. She's still got gas in the tank. And I think that on her best day, she's a much better fighter than Irene Aldana is, and I think that she has a higher ceiling than Irene Aldana does. So we're going to take the plus 135 on Rocky Pennington. Let's go, girl. Next up, we are going to the men's featherweight division for a weird fight. And now I know I usually say it's an interesting fight, or it's an awesome fight, or it's a cool fight. This one's weird. This one's really weird, and I don't know what to make of it. We've got Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres facing off against Steven Ocho Peterson, ESPN 8, the Ocho. Shout out to Dodgeball. Rest in peace, Patches O'Houlihan. So we've got Steven Peterson, who's 17-8. And he has only been in the UFC for 3 fights, and he's gone 1-2 in that run. He's got a loss to Brendan Davis and Luis Pena, and he beat tongue twister. He beat Matt Bessette. That's harder to say than you think. He beat Matt Bessette via split decision. So, realistically speaking, he could be 0-3. Split decisions, they're always close. I mean, tough call there. Now, Bruce Leroy, he is 14-12. So he's just barely over 500. This guy's like Artem Lobov. Now, Lobov was in the UFC because he was Conor McGregor's boy. Bruce Leroy is in the UFC still because he's so damn entertaining. You know he's going to go out there and he's going to throw spinning shit. You know he's going to go out there, he's going to throw flying knees. He's always going to go for it. So even though he regularly is going to a split decision, he gets finished by decent fighters a whole lot, he puts on a show. He always puts on a show. And I think because of that, he's got a decent amount of job security. But because of that, I've lost a shit ton of money on this guy, and I refuse to put any more on there. I don't like the line. I don't like it at all. Bruce Leroy opened up at -155. Steven Peterson, the comeback is a +135 on him as an underdog. And the line has just kind of stayed there. It shrank a little bit. I guess most of the money is coming on Steven Peterson. He's down to about +130, +125, and Alex Caceres is just a slightly shorter favorite, sitting at about -150. This is a fight that Caceres should win. I don't think that Peterson is UFC caliber, but I can in no way trust Alex Caceres. He's got phenomenally low ring IQ. He does things to be entertaining, and he just kind of goofs off. He's like John Jones without the skill set to back it up. He goes in there and just kind of goofs off. He does stuff in the moment. He doesn't necessarily stick to a game plan. He just wants to be flashy. He wants to kick. He wants to punch. He wants to show off and have a good time. So there's no guarantee that he's going to win a fight doing what he does. Now, if you get a judge that sits there and oohs and ahs at him, then yeah, that'll score highly and he can probably win that split decision. But he doesn't always deal a whole lot of damage doing the shit that he does. So even though I think that he is clearly the better fighter over Peterson, there's no way in hell I'm laying -150 on this guy. We've had a good thing going, betting on favorites, and there is no chance that I'm going to get burned laying 1.5 units on Alex Caceres to win one, because he is maybe one of my top 5 untrustworthy fighters in the UFC. He's 14-12 for a reason, folks. He drops fights left and right for really stupid choices. Let's leave it at that and move on. We have made it to the main card. That is a fun, entertaining undercard, and we are kicking off the main card with a bang, with a throwback fight. We've got Andrei the Pitbull Arlovsky facing off against Big Ben Rothwell. Heavyweights going at it, and maybe two of the most, well-tread heavyweights, I guess, is maybe the best way to put it. These guys have been fighting for freaking ever. Andrei Arlovsky is 27-18. Ben Rothwell is 36-11. They both have damn near 50 fights underneath each of their individual belts. Between the two of them, we're closing in on 100. Holy crap, these guys have been around a long time. That's the fun thing about heavyweights. They really mature. They take a long time to mature, and even once they do, they've got longevity. And if you're smart, somebody like Andrei Arlovsky, who a couple years ago we were talking about how he didn't have a chin, they can completely revamp their game. They can reinvent themselves. Junior Dos Santos did that. Andrei Arlovsky did that. Overeem, that's the one I was looking for. Sorry, that weird, annoying sound was because I was trying to spit out the word Overeem, and it just wasn't quite clicking to get there in my brain. Overeem is the other one who invented himself again to get away from those chin problems, and it's just really incredible. I love that you can keep watching these guys for so long. And heavyweights are really the ones that break my rule a lot when it comes to that 40-year-old rule, because 40-year-old heavyweights, they're not necessarily done. They can get up into 42 and 43 before they really start being shot, because a lot of them hang on to that fight-ending power. That's kind of the last thing to go. They'll gas out. They don't really have their same skill set anymore. Maybe they can't take a punch quite as well, but they can throw one. So getting into the meat and potatoes of this really fun fight, we're going to start here with Andrei Arlovsky. There's not a whole lot to say. He's a legend of the sport. He's very well-rounded, and he has been fighting very, very, very close with some young up-and-coming talent. So we've got to go back to 2017, where he won a unanimous decision over Junior Albini. Now, we have talked about Junior Albini very much recently. Junior Albini is not a good fighter. He is not someone who belongs in the UFC these days. And Andrei Arlovsky has a win over him, so he doesn't get a whole lot of credit for that. Stefan Struve is another one that he has a decision win over. He doesn't really hurt people anymore. Arlovsky does not have the kind of power that he used to have at his disposal. He was on a 5-fight losing streak. He wins over Albini and Struve, who retired almost immediately after. So, two guys that are not or don't belong in the UFC anymore. Then he fought Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa, who I am high on and I do believe has a future, but he fought another close decision with him. He fought a close decision with Shamil Abdurakhimov, which that's saying something, and he lost to Walt Harris. Now, that loss has been overturned because Walt Harris, who is fighting later on in the card, popped for performance-enhancing drugs. So, I don't know if we can't really draw a line through it, because I think he legitimately lost that fight, and I don't know that Walt was really a huge beneficiary from those performance-enhancing drugs, but it is what it is. Got overturned to a no contest, it's not a loss. Well, then he dropped a split to Augusto Sakai in April of 2019, and truth be told, I think he won that fight. I really remember being bummed for Andrei Arlovsky, because I think that was a fight that he should have gotten the nod for. He still has decent footwork. He's still very physically strong. He doesn't have that pop in his punches anymore for the knockouts these days, especially not against the higher levels of competition, but he's still very serviceable. Big Ben Rothwell, on the other hand, is coming off of a long layoff. He fought a full 5 rounds with 2016 very close to prime Junior Dos Santos, and was very competitive in that fight. He was on a 4-fight win streak prior to that. So he was really well on his way to a title shot at this point. He has wins over Josh Barnett by submission, Matt Mitrione by submission. He KO'd Alistair Overeem, and he killed Brandon Vera in the 3rd round with a thunderous TKO. So, he was something else. Ben Rothwell was really putting it together, and then he dropped a decision to Junior Dos Santos. Now, it's really a sad story. He was accused of performance-enhancing drugs, but he was actually cleared of that conviction. It was a tainted supplement, but he's one of the poor bastards who lost 3 whole years of his prime fighting life to a wrongful accusation of performance-enhancing drugs. He came back in March of 2019 and he fought Blagoy Ivanov, and it's one of my heartbreaking stories whenever I get on this microphone to talk to you guys. Ben won that fight. I don't care what anybody says. I will take that to my grave. I just rewatched it, and I don't care how many more fights Big Ben Rothwell has in the future that I study and tape study for, or Blagoy for that matter. I'm not going to rewatch the Rothwell fight because it makes me mad. Every single time I watch it, it makes me angry because the judges got that one so wrong. But Big Ben Rothwell, he still has really heavy hands. He's got excellent forward pressure. He stalks his opponent. He likes to stick his jab out there and just kind of let it hang out there to kind of gauge the distance, so he's not constantly wasting energy firing that jab. He just leaves the arm out there, so he's got kind of a stick to let him know where his punches are going to land, but it works really effectively for him. He actually has a surprisingly underrated ground game. Like I said, he's got those submission wins over guys like Mitrione and Barnett. Now, Barnett is the one that's really the most impressive here. 2016 Barnett is different from 2019 Barnett, and losing, I think that was the first time Barnett lost by decision. He's an excellent grappler. So Josh being able to be submitted by Big Ben Rothwell is something that's a feather in your cap. That's something you want to keep in mind. So I think all things said, Big Ben Rothwell is just a live fighter here. Arlovsky is very clearly on his way out the door. Now, that no contest broke his 4-fight losing streak up there. Technically, it's 3-fight losing streak and 1 no contest, but I'm going to call it a loss because let's be real here, it was. So he goes on a 5-fight losing streak, barely hangs onto his job because he's a legend, beats 2 guys that don't belong here, and then goes on another 4-fight losing streak. Maybe that last one was something that he should have gotten the nod for, but really that's still just not saying much. I think Big Ben Rothwell kills him. we were talking about a little earlier. Remember, we like to bring that price down. We like to do these parlays at about minus 180 to minus 220. That's the range we're looking for. Well, we have JIN SOO SON sitting at minus 200, and we are going to tie him up with Big Ben Rothwell at minus 183. That gives us a nice little parlay price of plus 131. We're going to risk 1 unit to win plus 131 on this parlay. Rothwell and JIN SOO SON, both of them to get it done, because let's be real, they both just kind of outclassed their opponents here. I really like this parlay. Let's get it done. Parlay JIN SOO SON minus 200 and Big Ben Rothwell at minus 183 for plus 131. Lock it up. Let's roll. All right, now that we got the big boys out of our system, we are headed back down the ladder to plus 155, where my boy, Alexander the Great Hernandez, is taking on Francisco Trinaldo. Now, this is a really fun fight. I'm back to my old ways. Here we go. Alexander Hernandez is 10-2-0, and he's facing off against Trinaldo, who's 23-6. Hernandez stepped into the UFC on short notice back in March of 2018 against Beneil Dariush and crushed him in 42 seconds. He was a plus 300 underdog, and nobody saw this kid coming. I want to say that we threw a sprinkle on him at plus 300. I can't remember if that's true or not, but I've had my eye on him ever since. He did face Olivier Aubin-Mercier, OAM, in July of 2018, and in my opinion, looked impressive. OAM is a very strong, well-rounded fighter, and he's got a powerful grappling game. And Alexander Hernandez was able to hang in there and even had some really bright, shiny moments. I mean, doing a reversal from his guard to back take a guy like OAM showed some real high-level jiu-jitsu. The kid's got all the pieces. He just needs a little time to put it together. And they threw him right into the deep end against Donald Cowboy Cerrone. And that was unfortunate, because as much as he is a bright, shining star in the making, in my opinion, and I do think that he's a potential future title holder, it was a little too early to give him Donald Cerrone. Plus, this version of Donald Cerrone, Dad Cerrone, is something else. He is a beast compared to the old Donald Cerrone that we used to see, and Alexander Hernandez poked the bear in that situation. I'm really curious to see like the pre-fight shit talk and stuff like that comes out of his mouth, because he really let Cerrone have it and lit a fire under Cerrone, and it bit him in the ass, something awful. But he's the kind of kid that I expect to see improvements. I expect him to take that loss on the chin and come back like a champion. He's the kind of person who's going to learn from that and then drive forward after that. So I think he's still got a very bright future, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he's capable of. He's a physical specimen at 26 years old. He is fast, he is powerful, and he's extremely explosive. One of the best things that he does is his blitzes with his straightforward punches. He has some very good body kicks. He's so quick, and when he unleashes to your rib cage with these Muay Thai style body kicks, it's like a baseball bat. I don't know how people stand after he gets it done. He has gone on record saying that he is trying to emulate TJ Dillashaw, and that Dillashaw is one of his favorite fighters and he really idolizes him. Now, outside of the performance-enhancing drugs and EPO situation, what a good idol. I mean, there's not a whole lot of other guys fighting-wise that you would really want to put above a guy like TJ Dillashaw. He was a monster. He mauled people and set a pace that no one could keep up with. That's something that's really, it's something that I take that's a positive, basically, from this, is that if he's shooting to be TJ Dillashaw, that's shooting for the stars. He's a good one to have on your mind. So, all that said, I mean, he had a really good round one against Cerrone too. Cerrone was just able to veteran savvy this kid, and he seems to have a little bit of an issue with taller, longer fighters, and I think that's something that'll come with time. He's used to being the hammer. He's used to being the physically more imposing, but the couple of times OAM and Donald Cerrone, when he fought guys that are taller and longer than he is, he had a couple moments where he struggled, and I just think that he needs time to get used to that and time to iron out the game plans that are a little different for when you're fighting fighters of that stature. Now, Trinaldo is not that. Trinaldo is another little compact kind of muscle beast, and that's exactly what you want for a guy like Alexander Hernandez. That's his bread and butter. When he's facing somebody physically about the same as him, I think we're really going to see him shine. Trinaldo is that, warning red light, 40 years old. And his last fight, he fought Evan Dunham, which was Evan Dunham's retirement fight. And in the first round, didn't look particularly good. He ended up KOing Evan Dunham in the second, but Dunham is a shell of himself. And in retirement fights, the guy retiring almost never wins. So I don't give a whole lot of credit to the last win. He did lose a decision to James Vick prior to that back in 2018. But James Vick is fighting later on this fight card as well. But I just don't give a whole lot of credit to that one. James Vick was able to stay on the outside and kind of piece him up. He didn't do a whole lot for me in that particular fight. Now, he did win a decision against Jim Miller. I guess that's kind of saying something, but Jim Miller, honestly, he put up a real damn good fight in that one. He was able to blast double Francisco Trinaldo to the ground, which is something that I think Alexander Hernandez will be able to do. They're very similar body types. And really, what it comes down to is that I think Jim Miller wrote the script. Even though he lost the fight, Jim Miller wrote the script on how to beat Francisco Trinaldo. Francisco Trinaldo keeps his hands down just a little bit. He kept his right hand guard down just ever so slightly, and Jim Miller blasted him over and over and over with these left hands that were coming just over the guard. They weren't quite straight punches, but they weren't wide enough to be considered hooks either. So I guess it's more of a straight punch than anything. We've already established that Alexander Hernandez has fast and powerful and damaging straight punches. And I think here is the key, because if that's one of Alexander Hernandez's best weapon, and we saw Trinaldo get hurt by Jim freaking Miller with that punch over and over and over again. We've talked about how older fighters don't necessarily evolve in their game. If he lets that right hand drop just a little bit, I think Alexander Hernandez will crush his face. I fully expect Alexander Hernandez to be able to survive on the ground against Francisco Trinaldo. He showed that he is more than competent against OAM. And on the feet, I think that Hernandez is going to be faster with better footwork. And Francisco really only has two pushes. He throws a winging hook and a huge looping overhand. Those are the two punches that he throws trying to damage and hurt his opponent so he can take advantage of it on the ground. I don't see that working with how quick and light on his feet that Hernandez is. And then even if he does get on the ground in a bad spot, he will be able to hold his own grappling. He will be able to get it back to the feet if he wants to. But the blitz forward pressure attacks, Trinaldo's good at being the hammer. He's not so good at being the nail. I think Hernandez is going to find a home for that left hand, and it's only going to take one or two for him to end Trinaldo's night. We're going to rock with Alexander Hernandez to bounce back in this situation and get back on the horse. A little bit of money has come in on Trinaldo, and thankfully that makes the line just slightly better for us, and I don't think it's going to be there for long. Let's lay minus 162 with Alexander Hernandez. We're just going to play him straight, but I really, really like this bet. Did I mention that this card is deeper than I thought it would be? Because holy damn, dude, we're 1 hour and 20 minutes into this thing, and we are still just barely cracking into the main freaking card. We've got 4 more fights. This card is so good for a freebie. Let's go! We're sticking around lightweight for just a minute, where James the Texecutioner Vick is taking on Dan Hooker. Now, this is a spot that is damn near identical to the last fight that we just talked about, where we have got a guy in James Vick that's been around for quite some time. Again, it kind of surprises me how young he is. He's only 32 years old. I kind of expected him to be a little bit older than that. He's 13-3, and he's run into a bit of bad luck here. He lost by brutal, vicious KO to Justin Gaethje in August 2018. Then he came back against Paul Felder and basically got outclassed. Paul had a perfect game plan for that fight, and I am really high on Paul Felder. 155 is without a doubt the deepest and most awesome division in the entire UFC right now. Dan the Hangman Hooker on the other side is 17-8. Dude's only 29 years old, but he stepped in the UFC and immediately started making waves. He's the main training partner of Israel Adesanya, who's fighting for the 185-pound belt against Robert the Reaper Whittaker. He is an iron sharpens iron type of fighter who's just got a wonderful, amazing team around him, and they are coming. I'm high on this kid. His last 4 wins Ross Pearson via KO, Mark Diakiese via submission, Jim Miller via KO, and Gilbert Burns by KO. Every single one of those fights is a slight step up, and he finished every single one of them. Just like Alex Hernandez, he got thrown to the wolves. He got thrown into the deep end against Edson freaking Barboza, who now, I think Daniel Hooker is a more well-rounded fighter than Edson Barboza is. He's got a better wrestling game, and he's got a better submission grappling game than Barboza does. But when it comes to the striking, Barboza is just a little older, a little more polished version of Hooker. Very similar. Barboza is more explosive. Barboza is more accurate. He was able to put Hooker in situations on the feet that he had never been in, and he's not a pure enough wrestler to get in there and take down and give Barboza problems like we normally see. So Dan Hooker took an ungodly amount of damage in his last fight. It was hard for me to rewatch that one. He is so damn tough. He basically got the hell beaten out of him for about 12 minutes, and nobody threw in the towel for him. And because he's tough as nails, he just kept walking forward. He believed he could walk through it and land a bomb of his own. Unfortunately, that didn't materialize for him, but again, he's the kind of fighter who I expect to see come back from this stronger. James Vick, I know a lot of people are high on him. He is so untrustworthy to me. He has not fought that high of a level of competition, and when he does, he chokes. He got KO'd bad by Beneil Dariush in 2016. He did submit Abel Trujillo, Marco Polo Reyes, Joe Duffy, and then he won a decision against Francisco Trinaldo, who is very tough. We've established that. But Joe Duffy, meh. Marco Polo Reyes, complete fraud, doesn't belong in the UFC whatsoever. And Abel Trujillo, he's another one who's he's not doing too great himself these days either. So kind of some questionable competition for a guy who's a top 10 fighter in the UFC's lightweight division. And then he steps up against Justin Gaethje and gets wrecked. Paul Felder hurt him over and over and over again. And somehow he managed to hold it together. But I worry about the amount of damage that James Vick has taken. Now, I know that sounds weird talking about the Barboza fight with Hooker, and I'm talking about being worried about James Vick's damage instead, but I think it's been a longer accumulation of things. So this is a fight that really, I think, is probably about a pick'em. Now, Dan Hooker opened way too wide at minus 175. I don't know who did that or why they did that, but it was wrong, and the betting public has sniffed that out. James Vick has been hammered all the way down to about plus 115. He's as down as low as plus 105 in places. He sits at about plus 115, plus 120 right now, and I think that's probably closer to accurate. Now, I like Dan Hooker in this fight. I think he is a younger version of James Vick. One of the things that he does really, really well is leg kicks. And that's something that causes problems for James Vick. He's mostly a boxer. He'll pull the kicks out of the hat every once in a while, and they work real well for him when they're mixed in. But I think that Dan Hooker is a more well-rounded fighter. He struggled with the leg kicks of Barboza, not so much the boxing of Barboza. And James Vick is more of a hand fighter than a leg fighter, and I just don't think he's going to have the same problems. Hooker's got real good boxing himself. He's got real good head movement, and I think this thing is going to go 3 rounds, and I think they're going to beat the living hell out of each other. I think that if you get an over 1.5, that's going to be the way to go. I will be looking for that when the lines start to come out, but I'm going to rest on the youth of Dan Hooker in this spot, but I'm waiting. This is not an official pick at this point. Keep an eye out on Twitter, because if it gets there, I'll make it one. If he gets down to even money, maybe if he gets down to minus 110, I'm going to be on Dan Hooker. But this is a spot where I need the line to be right, because this is a very, very dangerous fight. James Vick is a very good fighter, and he can win this fight. I side with Hooker, but I want the line to be where I need it to be before I pull the trigger. If you can get minus 110, plus 100, plus 105, plus 110 on Dan Hooker, that's where we want to be. So right now, no pick. Big lean to Dan Hooker. Keep an eye out on Twitter. We'll see what happens a little bit later in the week, a little closer to fight time. If the line starts moving the other direction and Dan Hooker gets back up in the minus 140 range, this is one we're just going to have to pass on, as bad as that sounds. Our foray into the lightweight division is over. We are headed back up to hang out with the big boys. We are going all the way up the line to the heavyweight division, where Greg Hardy, yes, that Greg Hardy, makes his return to the UFC, fighting Juan Adams. This is, in my opinion, perfect matchmaking. These guys have mirrored runs to the UFC, and both of them have really questionable low-level competition when they were just getting started, who they starched in the first round, both of them. Then they got into the UFC, and they fought relatively low-level competition until both of them got to the point where they could actually eat a loss. Now, Hardy's professional record is 4-1, where Adams is 5-1. Hardy's one loss came to Alan Crowder via illegal knee. Now, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen because Crowder was busting Hardy up because Hardy gassed out in that fight. And Crowder is not a very good fighter. We talked about him in his last fight, actually, and we very, very successfully faded him against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who he lost by KO in 9 seconds to. So we have a solid read on the skill set of Greg Hardy, and I have been on record fading this kid, and I talked about fading him until I can't fade him anymore. I said every single time I get a chance, I will fade him until he beats a UFC caliber guy, and then I will stop, because we're getting line value because of his name on basically everybody that he fights. He fought Dmitry Smolyakov, and he won by first round KO. We took the plus 300, plus 270 shot on Smolyakov, and hey, it didn't pay off for us. But we cashed that one on Alan Crowder, so technically, we're still free-rolling fading Greg Hardy right now. He is facing Juan the Kraken Adams. Now, Juan recently ran into some trouble when he fought Arjan Buller. Now, I am not a fan of Arjan Buller. He is a very limited fighter in my opinion, but he's 9-1 and he's got a decent wrestling skill set. Now, the spot, that's where it came from. That's where that word came from. The spot where Juan Adams fought Arjan Buller, I really thought that we needed to be all over Juan Adams. I was ready to lay the mortgage on Juan Adams, which I'm just kidding, never do. And he dropped the ball. It was because of the wrestling ability of Buller that he got that done. It was a decision. It was a close decision. You could have given it to Adams because Adams had a crap ton of significant strikes in that fight. Even though he lost it, he absolutely outpaced his opponent in some serious significant strike numbers. In fact, he's one of the highest significant strike numbers as far as how long he has been in the UFC for heavyweights. I think he's kind of on the top of some of the charts right now. So this is a spot where both these guys are really good at being the hammer, and neither of them are very good at being the nail. And they're very, very similar. They're both power punchers. They're both physically strong. They're both huge. They both cut to try to get down to the UFC limit of 265 for heavyweights. And, oh, there it is. Sorry, I found my stat that I was looking for. Juan Adams has averaged 7.41 significant strikes landed per minute in his UFC fights. 77.41. Holy shit. And the only two people that match that or are above that are Justin Gaethje and Leslie Smith. Let that sink in. Dude's a heavyweight, and his competition for the most amount of significant strikes landed is Justin freaking Gaethje? That's saying something. Greg Hardy goes out there and he wings for the fences. Dude's got power. He's incredibly explosive. But that's it. That's about all he's got. He's very, very green. Juan Adams came up as a mixed martial arts fighter. Greg Hardy played football and then has only been fighting or training MMA for a couple of years. Juan Adams started off as a wrestler. He's got a very, very good wrestling base, which is the best base that you can have for mixed martial arts. So when the fight gets hairy, he can lean on that. And even though Arjan Buller beat him, the reason Arjan Buller beat him is because he was a slightly smaller heavyweight and he had a better gas tank. That gas tank allowed him to weather the storm against Juan Adams and then pin him up in the cage, put him down, put him on his back, put him in spots he wasn't used to being in, make him work. Greg Hardy can't do that. Greg Hardy doesn't have the ability to wrestle to the degree where he can threaten a guy like Juan Adams. Greg Hardy got taken down very easily by Alan Crowder. And Alan Crowder is terrible and doesn't belong in the UFC. Greg Hardy gassed trying to finish Alan Crowder in the first round. And let's just stick on Alan Crowder here for a second. In the UFC, the dude is 1-2. The disqualification knee from Greg Hardy is his only win. The guys that are actually UFC caliber punchers KO him dead in the first round. Justin Willis and Jairzinho Rozenstruik KO'd him dead in the first round. Greg Hardy couldn't do it. We talk about Greg Hardy's explosive power and his punching ability. He could not KO this guy in the first round. He gassed himself out trying. And then Crowder put him on his ass. And then Crowder was the one stalking him down, blasting him with punches. I can guarantee you that Juan Adams hits harder than Alan Crowder does. I can also guarantee you that Juan Adams is a better grappler than Alan Crowder is. Juan Adams is going to have every single advantage in this fight. And once again, because of his name and because of the explosive power that people seem to think that he has, we are getting a line here. We've got to pick him. It's minus 110, minus 110, minus 115, minus 115. This is a pick 'em fight, ladies and gentlemen. We can get Juan Adams at minus 110. And I think that's the play. I'm going to try to fade Greg Hardy one more time because Juan Adams is a legitimate up-and-coming MMA contender. Greg Hardy has some of the natural skill sets to maybe become something later on, but he really reminds me of some of the other people, like your boy, Eric Anders, who came over from football and have all the physical gifts and tools to be able to be MMA fighters, but they just don't seem to evolve. I haven't seen evolution in his game. He's done the same damn thing, and he's not shown us anything different. Now, I know the Smoliakov fight was only 2 minutes and 15 seconds, but he didn't show me that he's going to be able to stop the wrestling of Juan Adams. If Juan Adams gets hurt, he will grapple. Juan Adams might even grapple without getting hurt. And if he does, that's a problem for Hardy because both of these are big boys and they both gas out. This thing is going to get real hairy and it might be a really boring third round where they just kind of stare at each other. But I'll bet you if it gets there, Juan Adams has 2 rounds in the bank already. I'm going to say Juan Adams. We're going to lock up minus 110 and we are going to try to fade Greg Hardy one more time. Oh boy, we have made it. We are here. The co-main event of the evening. Aleksei Oleinik, the boa constrictor, is taking on Walt, the big ticket Harris. This is a fun fight. Aleksei Oleinik is another one of these super well-traveled heavyweight fighters. He is 57-12. 57-12. Holy shit. And 45 of those wins, for 79%, have come by submission. Wow. Now, Walt Harris, on the other hand, is 36 years old. He's 12-7. And he can't say nearly as much. His 12 wins have all come by KO. He's got a 100% knockout rate. Now, that's because he beat Andrei Arlovsky by decision and it got turned into a no contest. But we've already discussed that. Aleksei Oleinik has a squeeze like nothing you have ever seen. The reason he submits everybody is because he can squeeze harder than anyone you've ever met in your entire life. He gets really awkward spots. He's actually, in general, he's awkward. That's a good way to describe him. He's got awkward striking and awkward movement. He's very herky-jerky, but he's got underrated power. He has clipped several people and knocked them to the floor, and that's what's opened up the submission attacks for him, and it's because he comes from weird angles you're really not expecting. The only people that he loses to are top-tier fighters who are solid power punchers. He lost to Alistair Overeem via KO, which we were betting on Alistair for. He lost to Curtis Blades by KO. He did lose to Jeff Monson, Magomed Makirov. Now we're going way back in time. We don't need to go that far back. But as far as his UFC caliber opponents go in his last couple of years of competition, it's really only been those 3. Daniel Olemanchuk, which he went to a 3-round decision with, Curtis Blades, and Overeem that have got it done. Everybody else he's finished. Everybody else he's fought in the UFC he has submitted. And I expect that trend to continue. The one time Walt Harris dipped his toe in the deep end of the division here at heavyweight, he got subbed in under a minute. Now, granted, that was Fabricio Verdum, who was in heavyweight type status at that point, but he's a very similar submission threat to somebody like Aleksei Oleinik. Now, I do think that Verdum has better striking than Aleksei does, but I mean, it's a different style. You know what I mean? That's kind of apples and oranges. The submission game is comparable. The striking game is not. Fact of the matter is, Walt Harris hasn't really fought anybody. He's kind of had a rough run in the UFC, but he hasn't fought that high of a level of competition. He fought Cody East, Shamil Abdurakhimov, which he lost, Chase Sherman, Cyril Asker, Fabricio Verdum, Mark Godbeer, which he also lost to now. Daniel Spitz, Andrei Arlovsky, Sergey. I mean, Werdum and Arlovsky are really the only two that he's fought that are anything to write home about. And one he won, but was a performance-enhancing drug user, so that got overturned, and it was a close 3-round decision. It's not like he dominated old Arlovsky, and then he lost quickly to Fabricio Werdum. I am going to roll with the old man here. I'm going to go with the boa constrictor. Aleksei Oleinik is 42 years old. Rules are made to be broken in very specific circumstances, and this is one of them. Aleksei Oleinik has a really weird style of striking, and even though Walt Harris is going to go for it, he leaves himself open to counters. He has a weakness for the submission game, and he hasn't fought anybody. Oleinik is going to walk through all of his shots, close the distance. If he clips him and knocks him to the ground, he will submit him. Walt Harris will not get back up. Standing, Aleksei Oleinik is capable of tying up an Ezekiel choke. He's the only MMA fighter to have an Ezekiel choke in UFC history, and I don't think Walt Harris is savvy enough to defend it. It's a choke that you can do standing, and then you pull guard and allow your opponent essentially to get on top of you, but that tightens the choke. Walt Harris is the kind of bum who will fall for that trap, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it here. Aleksei Oleinik is currently a decent-sized underdog. Now, I'm sad that we didn't get the prime line. I should have tweeted it out and jumped on it earlier, because a lot of people are thinking the same way I am. We've got a reverse line movement situation here, folks. Walt Harris opened up at -175 with the comeback on Oleinik at +155. 55% of the money has come in on Harris, the favorite. However, that line has shortened because the 45% of the money coming in on Oleinik is worthy of pushing that line down. The bigger money, the more respected money is coming in on Oleinik, and right now we can get him at +130, and I love it. Let's rock a dog. Let's cheer for the old man. Come on, boa constrictor. Give me that choke. +130 on Aleksei Oleinik. And that brings us to the main event of the evening, where Rafael dos Anjos, 29-11-0, takes on Leon Edwards, 17-3-0 in the UFC's welterweight division. This fight is so sneaky good. It is so underrated. Rafael dos Anjos, we've talked about him a lot lately. We just went over his fight with Kevin Lee, and we could not have called that fight more perfectly. He knew exactly what he had to do against the young up-and-coming Kevin Lee. He paid his dues, and as soon as Kevin Lee started to slip, he cranked it up a notch because he couldn't keep up with Rafael dos Anjos' gas tank, and RDA finished him. Leon Edwards is the dark horse of 170 pounds. Dude's only 27 years old, but he's 17-3. He's just getting going. Even though he's kind of unknown at 170, he's dangerous. His last 3 fights are Peter Sabata, Donald Cerrone, and Gunnar Nelson. Now, the Donald Cerrone fight is a solid win. That's the one that opened Cerrone's eyes and let him know he needed to get back down to 155 because he couldn't quite hack it against these big boys at 170. So it's saying a lot that he beat Donald Cerrone. This is Dad Cerrone. This is the guy that really had a rejuvenated career at 170, and that was the fight that woke him up. He fought against Gunnar Nelson in March of 2019, and Gunnar Nelson is a solid submission grappler, and he does have some explosive striking, so a very, very dangerous fight. It was a split decision, and that's the one that really catapulted him up to the point where he could be talking about title contention. I'm very impressed with Leon Edwards, and to be truthful, I came in here expecting to tell you I wanted to bet Leon Edwards. I really, really wanted to tell you that. My brain told me that he was the better fighter. And even though this is kind of a sketchy spot that we're getting into here, I've got to go with RDA again. We've got to ride this train until it fails on us. He only loses to the toughest wrestlers at 170. He is a champion level striker. He is such a well-rounded fighter that it's damn near impossible to beat him. The only guys that can do it are incredibly high-level wrestlers that can take him down and then defend against his submission game. Leon Edwards has an underrated grappling game. Yes, it's underrated, but it's not the level of Colby Covington. It is not the level of Kamaru Usman. And because of that, I think RDA can handle it. RDA might be the slightly smaller fighter in this case, but that has never been a problem for him in the past. Especially when he made his debut up at 170, he pieced up Robbie Lawler and won a very convincing, striking heavily game. Now, most people turn fights into RDA into grappling matches because he's such a dangerous striker. Leon Edwards is not going to do that, and if he does, he will lose. Like I said, RDA has done nothing but train for grapplers since he got to 170, and only the best of the best beat him. So if Leon Edwards goes, that's the key right there, grappling. He doesn't have the skills to get it done. If he does that, he loses. So if he doesn't do that and he plays to his own strengths, which is striking, you're inviting a striking chess match with Rafael freaking Dos Anjos, the guy who reigned over 155 with an iron fist before his body told him he couldn't make that cut anymore. He is a deadly, deadly striker on the feet, and I really think he should be the favorite here. I was shocked he was the underdog against Kevin Lee, and I'm shocked again that the bookies aren't giving him more faith here. He's a very small dog, but that's just enough value for us to go ahead and ride that money train. Plus 107 is where we can get Rafael Dos Anjos right now. This should be a pick'em, or Rafael Dos Anjos should be a very slight favorite. So it's a very small amount of line value that we're getting here, but it's just enough for me to go ahead and make that move. RDA is a top 3 fighter. Leon Edwards belongs in the top 10, potentially even the top 5, but this is his chance. The only fighters that he fought that are even close to that, well, he lost to Kamaru Usman back in 2015, and I know that was 4 years ago, but he hasn't fought a title contender since. Yes, he's on an impressive win streak. Yes, he's got 7 wins in a row in a very stacked division. Yes, he beat Gunnar Nelson, but it was close. Yes, he beat Donald Cerrone, but Cerrone doesn't belong at 170. Yes, he beat guys like Luque and Barberena, but they're not title challengers either. At least not yet. I think Rafael Dos Anjos is the more well-rounded fighter. I think it's hard to find a fighter that's as well-rounded as Rafael Dos Anjos. I don't know if there are any, actually. And if you're going to go well-rounded against RDA, you're going to lose. We're going to rock RDA at plus 170. Oh, baby, that was a long one. Thank you for sticking with me. Let's recap those picks. We are kicking our night off laying 2 units with Jennifer Maia, minus 130 and minus 113. We are rocking with Sam Alvey at plus 144. We are going to parlay JIN SOO SON at minus 200 with Big Ben Rothwell at minus 183. That gives us a nice price of plus 131. We are going to rock the dog with Raquel Pennington at plus 135, laying the wood with Alexander the Great Hernandez to bounce back at minus 162. We are going to fade Greg Hardy, Juan Adams minus 110, Aleksei Oleinik to get his fluky sub at plus 130, and we will bet on RDA to be the more well-rounded fighter at plus 107. Thank you all once again for sticking with me. Thank you for all the love. Tips and donations are always appreciated. Hit me up on Twitter. Give me a subscription. Share the podcast. Show me some love. Let's go. We've got another fun week. Let's roll. Keep the money train rolling.